Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians, talk all about their lives and music while sharing a craft beer. I hope you've been having a great holiday season. I most certainly have been. This is the final Vox and Hops episode for 2022, but before we jump into this episode, I would just like to ask you to follow the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I would love for you to tell a friend about the podcast. If there's someone in your life that just loves craft beer, well, you should let them know that the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast exists. You can tell them that there are over 380 episodes where I sit down with some of the world's best musicians, and we talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you would encourage one of your craft beer enthusiast friends to become a brand new Vox and Hops head, that would be something that I would truly appreciate. Now, today on the podcast, I'm very stoked to be back with my two very good friends, Craig Thorn of the BAOS podcast and Noah Forrest of Beerism. Get ready, everyone. This is Vox and Hops episode number 385, and we're talking about the top 10 best Quebec craft beer breweries of 2022.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
What's up, everyone? Today, I'm very stoked to be back with my two good friends, Craig Thorn of the BAOS podcast and Noah Forrest of Beerism. Here we go. Fourth year in the row, we are smashing through the top 10 Quebec breweries of 2022. 4 years we've been doing this. I'm excited that we're still doing this. I'm stoked about it. Massive year for Quebec craft beer. Massive year for beer in general. I'm excited to... First off, hang out with you guys. It's been a long time that we three haven't sat down together and had a conversation. We have a bunch of great beer to talk about, a bunch of great beer to taste and to showcase for everyone. But let's just do it. Let's just jump straight into it.
This is awesome, boys. 4 years in a row, eh?
4 years. Here we are. It's it started on a whim, on a let's just do this, and we did it, and it worked, and it was fun. And then you lost power that first year, which was funny, because funnily enough, it happened to me like 2 weeks ago when I was doing the top 10 Quebec metal albums. I had no power. I had candles. It reminded me of that night, the first time we hung out and went through the best Quebec breweries. We brought Noah on the following year, because how could we talk about Quebec beer without Beerism? It's a pleasure to be with you guys.
I love
you
it.
too, man.
Yeah, it's this has been, I was saying to you guys off air, this is one of, and I mean it, one of my favorite times of the year. It's always really cool to kind of reflect, because during the year you're just always looking for the next thing and paying attention. We're talking blah blah blah, you're doing pods and what content, but when you actually get to reflect and we get to really talk about hey, these are the people I think performed the best this year, and we all put our list together and we combine them and agree, basically just a numerical thing. It's math essentially, but it's really cool, and we get to kind of give the flowers to the people that outperformed, and it's exciting.
I feel like this year I went through a lot of changes with the way that I look at beer, and I think, Craig, because of your move and everything and your ability to get Quebec beer, you probably have a different perspective on what's going on here versus where you are now. And
in case people don't understand the reference of Craig, Craig has moved out of the province of Quebec. He now lives in Ontario. He moved throughout the summer, but he's still very involved in the Quebec craft beer scene. I feel like you'll never be able to get away from us.
Not at all. And it's I lived in Montreal for 10 years to the day, and I was representing Ontario craft beer equally whilst being in Quebec. So I see it the same way. I'm representing Quebec beer equally whilst being out here in Ontario. I'm doing my best to stay on top of it, but I feel like I was, I only moved the end of July, so that's 7 full months of the year in Quebec. Plus, obviously, I brought everything with me that I already had, and maybe I might have missed out on new releases towards the end of the year, but I'm very much in tune. I still speak to everybody. Nothing's changed. I'm excited.
Well, I think what's so amazing about beer in general these days is that there is so much being released constantly, every single day, that FOMO, you almost can't have FOMO anymore, right? I remember when there was the Dunham release that was 2 or 3 times a year, and it's I didn't get to try that one bottle, whereas now it's there's new barrel aged stuff they're dropping every week or whatever, and Missorum's a new beer every week. So at this point, you can get a good understanding of what's happening in the scene without literally trying every single beer, because it's literally impossible.
You can only drink so much, and you can only afford so much, and you can only wait in line so much. It is very, very cool, and I will say this, that compared to other years, a lot of the beers on our list, I remember doing this last year and being like, well, I only had a few of these because they're hard to get. A lot of these breweries are now distributing because they moved up their volume of capacity, and they're getting distributed. Most of these breweries on our list, which is cool if people are listening to this and they want to get their hands to stuff, it will probably be available in your craft beer store for about 80% of the beers on our list this year.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, the only exception would have been if something like if we were talking about Oval or Brete Sauvage or something like that, maybe not. But otherwise, it's very easy to get everything now.
And we should preface this by saying that our lists are our favorites. You know, it's the ones that we appreciated the most, and then we hashed out together our cumulative list. But these are beers that we drank. So I did not drink an Oval this year. I've never had a Brete Sauvage, so obviously they can't be on my list. So they might deserve to be there, but for me personally, I did not have them, and I don't know about you guys, but the people that I put on my list and then we hashed down to this list are definitely breweries that I drank from, that I enjoyed, and deserve some massive praise for 2022.
Definitely, and that was a really good thing to mention, that this is just personal opinion on our favorites. And I was also want to mention that I feel like this year was the easiest to, like, we had probably 6 or 7 that were the common ones between all of us, and we had to decide on the other 3, which felt like it was easier. And I think it was because of what you said, Matt, that a lot, like, say one couple of years ago, Bar Canada wasn't in my top 10. I know they deserve to be there, but it's only because I hadn't tried them. This year I drank a lot of Bar Canada, so it was a different, so I was able to have a solid perspective on what their output is. I know they've got the new Auckland brewery that now they're pumping stuff out. Montreal got a lot. I got people to get stuff for me. I got more on the way thanks to Nate. So, like, you know, it's a different scenario, and I think it speaks to, like, the growth of the brewing scene, that, you know, now we're all able to try all of these different things that maybe before, except for the, you know, Oval, Brete Sauvage, whatever. I had one Oval this year at Pullman Wine Bar on Park. Fire was the last bottle. Like, what's the Saison? What's the one?
Espinay.
Absolutely glorious. But that was all I had, so it's a little hard. So
it's so drinkable. It's
impeccable, but it is hard to put those type of things if you have one beer. You know, probably Oval should be the top of this every year, I guess. But, you know, unless you live in, it's a Val d'Espoir, I think. Like, good luck. So the way we arranged this too, guys, by the way, we tried to put it in some sort of an alphabetical order at first, but it didn't really work out completely. And what we did the last 3 years were we all drank the same beers. So we'd have, you know, of the 10 breweries, we would have 4 beers and we would all drink the exact same of the 4 beers. Matthew's idea this year, which was fantastic, was that each of us have a beer from 9 of the breweries, and then our number 1 brewery, we all have the same one. So every brewery will have a beer represented tonight by one of us. So we split it up so that, you know, nobody did any back-to-back beers. So the alphabetical order kind of went out the window a bit there.
That's true. And there's no, like, massive build-up. There is a number 1 brewery, which we did last year for the first time because they deserved it. And it was Cinquième Baron last year, in case people didn't check that out for 2021. So we continued doing that again. We wanted to choose the best brewery, and then we just sort of mishmash the others. So it's not like the one that we start with is not as good as the one that we finish with. It's a top 10, but there is a best brewery that we've all 3 decided upon.
Correct, but there's not like counting down from 10. There wasn't like number 10. It's all essentially equal. We just picked one we thought with the same criteria from last year that just maybe outperformed the others across the board, with whether for everything from branding to the variety of liquid to the consistency and the experience at the brewery, the whole works. So with that, fellas, how do you feel about we get this bad boy going?
Yeah, for sure.
Noah, tell us who the first one is.
So the first beer is Sir John, and so this particular beer is a Citra and Sultana IPA, 7.2%. And that's about all the details on the beer. But yeah, so I've had a few Sir John's this year for sure. I still haven't been to the actual brew pub bar brewery, but I've had a few because I've really been drinking a lot of IPAs this year. I've always liked IPAs, but this year in particular, I've really just been going to town on New England haze. And so kind of like what we were talking about earlier at my local beer shop, which is Multi-Hops because I live in Verdun, they almost always have Sir John, Buck Canada, and now Brewski pretty often. They don't have Masorum, but Masorum's up the street. So I'm pretty good at getting everything here. And so I'll pick one up here and there. They're not my favorite for IPAs, but they do a solid hoppy lineup. And I haven't had too many of their stouts or lagers and stuff. Matt, have you?
I have. I've had one of their big stouts, the 1201. I think it is a maple syrup. I think it's spicy too. I'm a vegan. I don't drink beers with lactose, and a lot of their big stouts tend to have lactose in it, so I tend to avoid those. But they're an all-around, very well-rounded brewery, and it's. I definitely saw them coming up when they just opened, I think within the first 6 months, and I was like, this branding's fucking amazing. The beers were crazy green for the first few years because they just couldn't make enough beer and get it out. Their brew house was very small at first when they were just set up in Lachute, right on the main strip there. But then the greenness became a part of their characteristic, which a lot of people sought out, which is an interesting thing where in essence, it's a flaw of the beer, but it became a characteristic of the beer, of the brewery, which is interesting. But now as they've expanded, the greenness is gone, and they've sort of like honed in on the craft of making IPAs, probably the way that they always wanted to, but a part of me sort of misses the little green aspect of it. But the branding is always on point. They don't fuck around, these guys. They're beer cans are always super interesting, will definitely draw you in. They don't do anything half-assed. Max and Joel do not fuck around. They're all in if they're going to do something, and their brand shows that. The brew pub in Lachute is a perfect like little extension of the Lachute environment, and I think it's perfect. It's such a perfect location. I wish it was closer to my house. Obviously, I'd be there all the time. Very stoked that they got the new brew house in order. Now they're shipping and distributing to way more places, such as La Canette on St. Sebastien Street here in Montreal, which I love and I associate with. Shout out to Kevin. They're doing great stuff. Their crispy boys are fucking excellent. Their haze is very solid, and they do some sort of like sour with fruit in it, which is interesting too. But all around, they're like one of those full package breweries that can make just about anything, and the brand is just so goddamn strong that I can stand behind it, and I support them 100%. Love them.
Well, I'll tell you, Matt, if you pick this guy up, it is crazy green. So I've actually still find their stuff pretty green, but I don't know. It's interesting because more and more as we're seeing such a wide range of this type of IPA, from Buck Canada to Sir John to Brewski to Toltec to Masorum to Saint-Guillaume Bayon being more on the super bright but balanced, Sir John being on this, like, I find more cutting sharpness, where it's riding that line between astringent and sharp and burning. Then Masorum finding that middle ground now. So if you like one thing a little bit more than another, then you're gonna like go towards that brew, or that'll be your number one or whatever. So I find that interesting to see now the subtle differences in taste for the differences in the way that these beers are made.
Yeah, it's. I heard all the things you guys said before, and I definitely agree with the, like, probably not my favorite of all the haze. I think Noah, you said that just before, but I'm finding it becoming more consistent. So like every time I went to La Canette, I always got whatever Sir John that he had. Whether, Matt, you mentioned the 1201. I had that this year. It was fantastic. I still have in the fridge that there's a chocolate orange stout that I got from La Canette before I left, which I've been looking forward to getting into. I find their stouts probably arguably more consistent than the haze, but the haze has definitely been a lot better. Nate got me a couple recently. There was a Wicked Pale Ale and some of the, just like whether it's double, single, even the triples and stuff. They've been like pretty damn impressive. And I feel like it might be what you guys were saying. They've sort of come out of that green world and figured their shit out, figured out what they're going for, and been able to consistently produce it. It's great. Mm-hmm. And they've got that rep. They're in that world. They're in the conversation of, Masora and Bar Canada, Brewski.
They're in the hype world where people will line up overnight when they do their summer release, their anniversary release. So that means something.
Yeah, which is pretty dope. So they definitely deserve a.
Well, congrats to the whole team there. Cheers to you all.
Yes, cheers to sit down, guys.
Number 2, who we got? Go for it, Mr. Craig.
Well, of course, if we're going to be celebrating a brewery, we're going to celebrate with the beer that you did with them. It's Brasserie Generale, or BG, Brasserie Urbaine. Legendary. This is the... we got a lot to say about them. This one exploded. I think it's probably like 6 months old by now. This is the C'est Juste la Bière
I remember
collab.
that.
The second version, though, not the original version we did in a 4-pack, which I have beautifully on my wall right here. I look at your faces every single time I do a pod, boys. But yeah, man, BG I think they must have been in last year as well. I feel like over the last couple of years, they have just gone over and above in every style. Whether it's, Crispies, their haze, their stouts, like the barrel-aged stuff, the sours. I just feel like they're really consistent across the board. Max is doing a phenomenal job running the ship over there. Really interesting beers, well-crafted. I mean, Romain doing the labels. He is an artistic genius, that man. Who I really feel like they're very, consistently creative with every aspect of the product, which, all of us tend to value. Noah and I recently did a podcast maybe a month or two back with Max just about blending and barrel aging, which we'd never done before, like focused just on that. And that was really fun.
Yeah, it was.
You know what I mean? Learning a lot about that and how blending really works, because they are phenomenal with it. Because obviously Noah, we did the 4-pack. For people who don't know, this 4-pack here, if you're watching the video, it was Noah, so Beerism, VOX&HOPS, BAOS, and Hoppy Bitch. We did a 4-pack with them, which is pretty damn creative and cool. And La Canette, Shasta Kev. And Shasta Kells as well for the video that we did, a super fun video. That whole thing, working with you guys and doing that this year, was just one of the highlights of my year, man. Like, love you guys, and the project came out so well. I did a Pils, Noe did the American Strong Ale, Maddie did the West Coast IPA, and Gab did the low ABV Stout, and they were all fantastic.
Insanity. Amazing. I was there this past weekend, got to see Max, and went to their kind of new and improved tap room. He has this perfectionism to him in a very humble way. A lot of brewers can be a bit arrogant about their beer, and he's like the opposite of it. He wants all the criticism. And I know a lot of brewers say that, but then when you do, they get defensive. He's not like that at all. He's like, yeah, that was bad. This was good. Like, he straight up gets it. And just like the kindest dude.
Fucking right. BG smashes everything. Their brand is on point. Romain Lasser, what a killer artist, as you mentioned, Craig. Just captures this essence of what BG is now. It's fucking awesome. And their barrel aging is very fucking interesting, and I'm excited to see how much more stuff comes out as they keep growing that and refining that part of themselves. It's exciting. They shut down one of their tap rooms to focus more just on the main giant one, right? If I'm correct on that, this year, which probably was a tough decision to step out of the city and focus on their out of Quebec City. It's a little bit out of the ways, but not too out of the ways, because Quebec City's not that big, but it's not downtown, right? So that was probably a sacrifice they had to make to just focus on the beer, which is what Max does. Also, probably, I think it was my favorite beer project that I did. I did a few this year, as I tend to do. And C'est Juste la Bière was definitely the easiest, the most fun, and the project that one of the projects I'm most proud of 2022. The message that there's too much drama in the beer industry is just, I still stand behind that, and I hope that the project keeps seeing releases coming out and different versions of everything. But I'm stoked about it. I want to see it keep coming out, and I want to see more cool beers coming out of that. This consistency, right? From lagers to the stouts, to the blended stuff, to the haze, to the pale ales. It's nonstop. To the West, he doesn't stop. Just fucking great beers, and the brand is good. Excellent people running it. They deserve to be there. Cheers to BG, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers to BG. Huge one.
Number 3, obviously, people that we love, people from Montreal. Excellent place in the old port of Montreal. Of course, I'm talking about Brewski.
Hey.
Now, Brewski are scientists, which is what I love about Brewski. Ran by Derek, their brewer. He's a mad scientist, basically. He loves to fuck around with stuff and is hypercritical of everything. Wants to examine stuff and recheck stuff out. I love going there. The location is amazing in the old port and in Marché Beausecours. It's just so fucking cool. They have the little pub area on one side, and then they have the giant tap room on the other side, and they just redid the little pub area, and it's fucking awesome. There's a bakery that they're associated with, killer beers, and honestly, I still stand by this. I think they probably make the best smoothies in Quebec. There's the argument of who did it first there, but I really, really like their smoothies, and you can never go wrong with like a berry smoothie. It's very easy. So
yes, I agree.
Love it.
It's all about the berries for smoothies. Like the orange fruits, they can be awesome, but it's like a 50-50. But the berry ones, man, they almost always just slap, as the kids say. Whether or not they were the first to do it in Quebec, I feel like they were the first to double down on it in Quebec.
Yeah.
Like, they went at it hard and fast. There might have been others that had been released. I don't know. But they really went for it. And I think, like, you can keep their smoothies in the fridge for a year and they don't explode or anything like that. They're well carbed. Like, you even have head retention on there. That's something. I personally really, really, really like their IPAs. I think they're almost second or third in the province for me. And they did some good work with their stouts. They're still a little on the thinner side, I find, but the ones I've had recently were pretty good.
I went to Brewski a bunch, probably 3 or 4 times in the few months before I left. So it was like, my cousin came from Australia. I took him there for brunch and having smoothies, and I hung out with Patty from Overhop there and a few other times. And it's like Matt, you said, it's a vibe on the big patio. I couldn't agree more about the smoothies. I think they do the best smoothies in Quebec for sure. I thought that they were the first, but I guess who knows? Yeah, they are consistent in all of that. Nate got me some haze last time he went down, and exceptional. They have a very unique approach in their haze. It's all super dank and super resiny, even for the juicy ones.
Yeah.
But it works so well. It definitely caters to my palate. I think Derek is one of one of you boys were just saying that the scientists. Maybe it was you, Maddie. You're saying Derek's is really particular about his shit, and he'll figure it out. And I really respect his approach to beer. It's super welcoming and diverse. They did Link Up this year as well, which was great. But yeah, man, I fuck with Brewski heavy. I really, really enjoy Brewski, and yeah, I don't think they've not been in our top 10 in any of the 4 years.
I think they've been there every single time. Yeah.
Yeah, extremely impressive story.
Number 4.
I am talking about Masorum.
There it is.
There we go.
Noah's new neighbors. Tell us why Masorum on this year's top 10.
Well, I think there's a few reasons. I mean, for me personally, I'm there all the time because it's up the street from my house, and it's kind of become this like local spot for me because it's so around the corner. But aside from that, I've always, maybe the first 6 months, I was on the fence with the greenness of their IPAs when they first opened. But then shortly after that, I've always kind of preferred their IPAs to most others in the province. Not necessarily by waves and bounds, but, the top-ish for me. And then more and more, I just developed a taste for their style of brewing IPAs. And so I generally always have some in my fridge. But I think I mean, this is probably true for the last couple of years, but definitely this year, their barrel-aged stout game and their wild beers are really fucking good. And not like... So for the wild beers and the sours and stuff like that, you know, the trend used to be like, let's get as sour as possible, you know, like American-style sours, like kind of small pony with a real intensity. But they're really going towards like refinement and stuff, and they're like lightly tart and perfectly funked, and like they really are killing it with that. And then the stouts, they're doing that like double mash, so like the body is just ridiculous, and they're getting slowly away from the crazy pastries and more kind of taking that new style of stout and kind of going backwards with it a little bit. So they've done several that are just bourbon barrel-aged imperial stout or bourbon barrel-aged imperial stout with vanilla, like kind of basic instead of like cookie crumble and blah, 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 blah. Like they're not doing much of that. Thankfully, that trend, I think, is dying this year, thankfully. What do you think about that, actually?
I hope so. I'm fed up of it, but that's my old man coming out.
Yeah, this is Phil Derive, and it's double IPA with Citra, Talus, and Azaka. Right. It's on the sweeter scale of what they do, but that's also what I like. I'm definitely going to have my preferences, like a double IPA that's like super sharp and somewhat green and like zesty is kind of my thing. This is different. This is like more like an orangey, slightly sweeter double IPA. But if you get the same thing every time, it's also boring. Everything they do is actually quite different,
which is refreshing because at first it was not. So that's I'm cool that they're doing that. Masorum, obviously, I love them. They are metalheads that opened a brewery that is just fucking killing it. People from Ion Dissonance, the manager of the whole fucking place is Alex Herrier from Despised Icon. The Last Felony, Vince is the brewer. It's just fucking amazing to see friends succeed, and they're fucking crushing it. Every time I go there, it's bigger. Like the back area, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I went there for their anniversary this summer, and it's massive now. It's like walking through never-ending hallways at some point. It's just truly impressive, and I'm so excited for them. Filion killing the artwork all the time, the pressure that he must have to come up with new stuff. I talk to him about that all the time, and he's always like, I got it done. But it must fucking suck to continually have to match and keep up with the Vince's creations and to create something that stands on brand. They had the ceremony, which I did not go to, but it looked really, really fucking cool. I think like there's new things that are coming up next year. I don't know. I haven't spoken to them, but I imagine that they're already thinking of building more and more events like this, these very, very curated events for what the brand of Masorum represents, which is like classiness, zen at the same time. If you've ever been on their patio there, it's so relaxing. It's very interesting, which is actually where I met Noah, when it was like 3 tables. Now it's like there's like 70 it's unfucking believable. And yeah, I'm stoked for them. I can't wait to see. I'm excited that they're distributing a bit more. I don't know what that means in the grand scale of business, what that means. I think it's cool because I get to try more of them without having to go there. I like that. Craig?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I won't go too much because you guys have said it all. I've always been a fan, even from the beginning when they were kind of samey. They were very green back then, and just sort of watching them grow and grow the brand. They're all really great dudes. I went a couple of times before I left. I went for my birthday this year, and that was the first time back in a while. And I was blown away to how far the patio went back, that new kitchen area. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is like not the place I remembered. Because I guess I hadn't been since probably 2020, previously to this year for obvious reasons. But yeah, man, really, really impressed. The whole place was just dope. Their Crispies are just A1. I really feel like they don't get the love for the Crispies. Masorum, absolutely a must go. If people go to visit Montreal, at the 3 places I tell them to visit, this is my segue, I tell them to visit Brewski, I tell them to visit Masorum. And my third one, I actually switched this around because of the beer I have to drink. The third one, this is my favorite crispy brewery in Montreal or in Quebec, Silo.
Yeah.
I am such a fucking massive fan of Silo. JP is someone I've known for quite a while. I felt like I always thought he was really strange, and he thought I was strange. And I feel like as I've got to know him, because I liked all the trendy stuff and he thought it was ridiculous. And I feel like we've sort of been on these opposite ends, and now we've really met in the middle on this crispy. And his dedication. So JP, he used to own Le Succursale. He also owns Vera. And obviously now Silo, which opened, I think, in 2020. That was his project. You know, he was one of the brewers who did the pilgrimage to the Czech Republic, I think, in 2018, 2019, where like Bim from Godspeed went. I think maybe even Maddie from To the Nail went. A whole bunch of brewers went to the Czech Republic, which was a government initiative from them to send it out there. And now, you know, Ontario and Quebec, thank the heavens, are flooded with Czech-style beers. And to me, this is my favorite stuff to drink. I just love drinking lagers. I'm actually drinking their, this is their Bock beer, a 6.5% called Sauvé. And they don't only just do Crispies. I mean, they do some, like, they did this wicked C-Hop IPA. There was just money. Very, kind of what you guys were talking about before. One of the breweries were talking about just refinement. Maybe Masorum refining their stouts and their sours. They're very refined in everything they do, regardless of the style.
Silo, I put him in the same category as Derek in the scientist, very hyper-focused about everything that's going on within his tap room. I love watching brewers in their brewery and like just watching them tinker with their toys. I think he's just so goddamn proud of everything that he's done, getting that perfect yeast that he's found. I love Silo. I love the crispiness of it. I can't say enough good things about them. There needs to be more crispy beers as I'm becoming an older craft beer enthusiast, and maybe it doesn't reflect in this list, but on my personal list it definitely did reflect, is that I like breweries that make a lot of crushable beers, low ABV, something you can enjoy maybe a few more of versus just smashing double IPAs all night. Silo is one of those breweries. You can go there and enjoy maybe the whole tap list and walk out there feeling a little better than doing that elsewhere.
I think, with not trying to sound redundant, I'm not even going to talk about the lagers because I think both of you nailed it, from the cleanness of what he's doing, the recreation of old styles, and then him kind of playing with new versions of lagers that he's experimenting with is amazing. But like, I don't know how to say this without sounding kind of pretentious, but you ever walk into like one of those beer depths in like a neighborhood that it's almost like the beer depth's a little bit more trendy looking than it is content, So if you want like a solid IPA, you literally go through the whole fridge and they don't have anything that you would even want to drink that's hoppy. But then I saw the Silo stuff sitting there. I checked the dates and it wasn't like super old. And they were perfect because I think what he did with his hop beers, like, so he'd done a few pale ales and a couple IPAs. It's like a kind of a throwback to Vermont style IPAs at like the birth of Heady Topper kind of thing. So a little bit on the caramelly, not caramelly, but like fruitier maltiness than this like sharpness. And anyway, they're I feel like everything he's done with hops has been great. I could see people drinking it and kind of being like, meh, it doesn't have that punch. But I think that's the point for him, is like he was trying to create more, I don't know, just like a throwback a little bit cleaner, something that could sit on the shelf a little bit longer. And I thought he pulled it off really well.
I love his Silo C, the like more like resinous style old school IPA. I crush that all the time, and I do like that. And not a lot of breweries do this, and I think it hopefully it comes back. I understand the market, so people, the FOMA, the more and more new products, I have to try it. It's a little bit different, new label, new hops, I have to have it. I understand that, but Silo seems to have a little bit more of the flagship staple beers that are in rotation, and that is exciting for a brewery. For me, I like having my favorite beer and going to get it and knowing that it's going to be available. Once again, I'm sounding like an old man.
I think this is a whole other podcast I think we could do, because Noah, you mentioned before about his drinking habits changing. I think mine have too, and Matt, clearly you're feeling, and I'm feeling away. Like there's certain styles that I'm leaning towards now, even though I typically like the trendy stuff. Like I'm over lactose, I'm over pastry stouts. I want crisps, West Coast IPAs, and barrel aged stouts now. Like it's weird. I feel weird. It sounds like we're all changing.
Cheers to the whole crew at Silo. Keep doing what you're doing. Up next, we have a good friend of all of ours. Not that anyone else is not a good friend of ours, but someone that I feel like I could have grown up with in Two Mountains, and someone that I like to collaborate a lot with. Now, Craig was supposed to drink this brewery, and I didn't argue the fact that I most definitely wanted to have my beer in this episode. So, of course, we're talking about Kanawaki Brewing. He releases year-round, multiple times a year, Cryptopsy, which is a New World Pilsner, which is my band, Cryptopsy's beer. It comes out probably 2-3 times a year. It's phenomenal. This is a different beer. This is a beer that he had made for VOX&HOPS Brutal North America in 2021 when I released 24 collabs in a week. He still had labels left, so he's like, "Ma, can I do it again?" And I was like, "Of course you can do it again." And he did it again, and it's way fucking better. It's so goddamn good. This is Cold Haze Warm Blood, the double New England with blood orange. It's really, really good, this one. 8.5%, just killer. Kanawaki, what can I say? He's awesome. Super underrated. When everyone just this week, some guy wrote me, a fan of the podcast, wrote me, "Matt, I'm coming to Montreal. Where should I go? Obviously, I have to go to Masorum. Obviously, I have to go to..." And I'm like, you have to go to Kanawaki. If you have a car, make the trip to Kanawaki. You want haze. You want no lineup. You want to have killer food. You want awesome Krispies at the same time. You want just go to Kanawaki, experience it. He always collaborates with killer artists such as Philip Ivanovic, and he's used Philip for a bunch of other labels. He uses local artists. He's amazing. I can't like Kanawaki enough.
All the beers are fire. The haze is so underrated. So like Beast and Wizard, I think it's called. There's a bunch of really fantastic, consistent New England IPAs, and if you're looking for those, they don't get the credit that they're due. Absolutely, their Krispies are fire. I haven't had many stouts, but I've heard amazing things. I know they drop occasional barley wines and shit too. So I just feel like it's a vibe. It's not that far from Montreal. Drew is such a good guy. He's really just down for fun shit, and he's just a great dude who's really embraced all of us in the scene, to really go and put his brand behind stuff. And I just respect him a lot, and I just think I hope to see him get more props than he's been getting. Noah. I
couldn't echo that more. Drew is spectacular. Very well-rounded, right? He can hit a dry stout just like he can hit a New England IPA, and across the board, great stuff.
I think it's an interesting place because it has to cater to the locals. So there has to be normal beer, and that normal beer is kill. I don't know if you guys have had a Bridge recently. It's fucking good. Just a blonde normal beer. It's fucking killer. So good. I think that I've told Drew this, and I'll keep telling him, and if he's going to watch this. So Drew, I hope that this year in 2023 you get distribution. You get around that legal aspect of being stuck on the territory that you can't distribute because of the license you have and the restrictions that fall into that. I hope that 2023 is the year that happens, and if it's not, people go check it out. It's definitely worth it.
So so K-Town, so far we've only got 3 more to go, 1 more each, and then we do the number 1 brewery that we believe performed the best from Quebec in 2022. It's a solid list, man. Just going through it again, actually talking about it though. You can look at the list and it's okay, obviously it's dope, but when you actually talk about it, you realize man, these breweries are doing some fucking some work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like a lot of like factors fall into it, and that I keep hearing like repeated is consistency, identity, variety, staying true to their roots, being cool people. Good vibes falls into that too.
The cool people is that you're right, man. You're right. That those were the things that we're mentioning for every one of these.
I'm another thing that I'm thinking about as I'm looking through this list, and I think that really good breweries that are succeeding and that are really working really fucking well are somewhat owned by the brewers. I think it's like a big thing. Like, you can open a brewery, but you need a brewer to be a part of the company. I think it's important. I think that for the identity of a brewery to work, I think that the brewer has to have ownership.
I think that's a really interesting and accurate point.
I agree.
I don't know why. It's because they're the artist, right? The brewer is the artist. And a lot of brewers are underpaid if they're not an owner, so they're just going to hop, right, to another job, and then there goes the identity of what's actually in the can, which is scary, right? So, next one.
Buck Canada.
Hey. Noah's fave.
So I'm actually anxious to try this.
Okay.
Because I think it's a double. Yeah, it's. Do you remember, like, they had their double IPAs and they were all the names of Roman emperors?
Yeah,
and
cool.
They had Caligula, but this is like double dry hopped Caligula. So I think they're like haze is changing so fast, right? So the crazy double IPAs of 2 years ago are not the ones of today.
Buck Canada's a killer brewery. They're one of the kings, right? So there's a handful of kings in Quebec, and they are most definitely one of them. Very stoked that they've opened the new massive production facility, because there's a lot more beers getting distributed. I get my hands on them. I would like to see more variety from them. Maybe the variety is just not getting distributed. When I think of Buck Canada, I think of haze. I think of the big barrel aged stuff. They do a little bit of smoothies. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never actually been there to taste it myself. But everything I've tasted in a can, fire. They make probably the best double IPAs in Quebec, I would say.
I don't know if I could speak to that exactly. I haven't had as many, but yeah, man, they had that new facility. So they're in Gatineau. They had one called Haute Plaine that they opened up this year, which, like you said, has now resulted in the beers being a lot easier to get, which is very welcome. They've been doing. I feel like there was a period where maybe their stuff wasn't hitting last year, and I feel like this year everything I've had from them was like really, really solid. There's probably a period that, obviously new facility that they've got to dial it in.
Scaling up. They're scaling up a recipe. Just imagine like scaling up a spaghetti sauce recipe.
It's a lot, man. You're right. And particularly a very particular spaghetti sauce recipe. There has to be this consistency. And like, you've got these snob spaghetti sauce.
If not, your grandmother's going to slap you,
That's what I'm saying. Your nonna is going to come through with a fucking boom, boom, boom.
Exactly. Those are the craft beer geeks, Come on.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, I'm picturing this nonna as like, God has a big beard. Like just like giant bearded nana that's like in plaid, but also foreign style skirt in some way, whatever that might mean. And then like the strong accent and just like slapping.
No, they're like, I feel like Buck Canada are doing some really cool shit, man. Like I just like seeing them around. Yeah. They're obviously like pretty much the haze OGs of they're up there with the.
They also reinvented the stout in Quebec, in my opinion. Not this year, but kind of just redefined what stouts were here anyway. Like, I mean, the Americans did it first, but they really, really nailed that. They nailed it before anyone else could. And then they really started that, which is
very cool, man. They're definitely...
What makes them worthy of the top 10 for you?
I think being the kind of like staple and the thing that everything else should be measured against for the last few years is huge. And this last year they've had to scale up and concentrate on certain things. And now what they have is distribution, which is amazing. So like we talked about, we can actually get them at various depths and stuff. I still feel like they need to tune in that new scalability a bit, but they're still certainly making some of the best beers in the province. I want to see more bloggers in distribution, though. I haven't seen one of those in a while.
It's cool that they were one of the OGs of haze and stouts and such in Quebec, pastry stouts and such. So now they're able to expand a bit more, get it out. You used to have to kind of go there, and it was more of a treat to get it. That's why, for me, they were never in my top 10 because I just never really got to drink them. It was so difficult to get up there. I didn't have a car when I was in Montreal, so I wasn't able to just zip up and pick some shit up and come back. So, I feel like it's almost like you don't even really need to say it. If you know Quebec beer, you know who Bar Canada is, you know why they deserve to be in there. I think their consistency, Matt, because I don't know if you heard, Noah, when you were getting the beer, but we were talking about the elements of what all of these breweries have in common that got them in the top 10. And I think Bar Canada has that.
Up next, we have someone that's I don't think has ever been in the top 10. I don't know why they haven't been. They probably inspired everyone that's ever been in our top 10s ever. They are the OGs of craft beer in Quebec. Who's this? Who's drinking this? I think Craig is drinking this.
GDCL.
Yes.
The legends. Do you know what's interesting? The reason I put them in my top 10, I'm going to be honest, like Noah's had them in his top 10 every single year. And Matt and I didn't. Now, since I fucking leave Quebec, and guess what I want to drink all the time? Péché Mortel. I love this beer so much. It is, Noah's always said this, and Noah, this is why I realize I'm turning into you. Now, like you said, we swapped. I got the basement cellar, and I'm drinking Péché like a crazy man. And just look at this. This is like the epitome of coffee stouts in Canada, if not further. I would like to taste something.
The fucking world. Literally the fucking world.
Literally the world. And it's like $2.99 or whatever the fuck per bottle. Anywhere you can get it. JF, I was speaking to him the other day actually, and such a good dude, the co-founder, and he was the brewer for a while. They're just an institution, and I just kind of feel like, I guess we all sort of agreed, for me, once again, it was this beer specifically that made me want to include them in this year's top 10. But there are many, many, many other reasons, just aside from Péché. It's just I think this is a very good reason to include them in the top 10.
Yeah, I think for me, in previous years, I didn't necessarily include them because I think I was always taking that frame of mind of like, okay, who's made a lot of changes this year, who's done this or like done something new in the last few years, aside from branding changes and redoing their Jerome, there wasn't like a whole lot changing with GDCL. But I think for me personally this year, and I don't even think I talked to you guys about this, I wanted them on the list, and I'm really happy that they are on the list because since I started craft beer, they've been my kind of number one. And this year in particular, I feel like I kind of hit a wall with trying new things all the time and realizing, okay, like I still like to be aware of what's happening, but there is such a value in finding your go-tos and just enjoying them, and GDCL is I'm always at the store buying their 4-packs. Almost every seasonal release they do, whether it's a Scotch ale or a lager or whatever, I'm always trying it because with the exception of a very few, they're always perfect to me. But where they completely lack, at least in any contemporary way, is with their IPAs. Like they did Morality, which was a classic and actually kind of revolutionary in Quebec. Morality was a collab between The Alchemist and GDCL and was kind of like ushering that new IPA for the province. But since then, they haven't really been able to catch up in that area, but every other area I think they're basically perfect.
The stability, the volume, it's always fucking perfect. It's so good. You pick up a rosé hibiscus in one place to another, months apart. They're going to be basically the same, and that's like a mastery of a craft right there. That's like going to the old school style of craft beer from Europe, where the brewery makes one beer, and they go to work every day and they make the same fucking beer, and there's minute adjustments, changing the stuff, refining, making it better. It's an art form, and Zutziel is an art form. Desert Island beer question. My answer: it's a horrible beer to drink on a desert island, but it's Péché Mortel. It's the best fucking beer in the world. It's so fucking good. JF is a sweetheart. I have not been to the new revamped area in Saint Jerome as of yet. They're working and revamping Montreal right now. I'm excited to check out the new Montreal location. It needed a revamp because it was a bit tiny and old school, so I'm excited to see what they do there, and hopefully they meet the area, because the area is fucking crazy that they're in. There's like 8 craft beer bars that are way bigger and way better established, like space-wise and vibe-wise. So I hope that Zutziel meets that in Montreal and matches that. That's like, I hope that's a plan. They're the best. They're one of the best. The Journée Pêchée is something very avant-garde to have like a beer release across the globe. No one in Montreal has pulled that off yet. No one in Quebec has pulled that off yet, except for Zutziel. So I am stoked they're on the list. They were not on my list because I have lots of people that I love and wanted to showcase and shine younger breweries. But I'm happy that they're on the list because I drink Péché Mortel whenever I can.
Hell yeah. Love it. Alrighty.
We're at number 9, and we had to wait for number 9 for the brewery that's closest to my house. If anyone knows where I live, they know where I'm heading to this. My neighbors, a young brewery, a brewery that does exactly what I was mentioning before: drinkable beers, drinkable lagers, drinkable haze, juicy, not so much haze. They've been doing the weird funky stuff. They've been doing the barrel-aged stuff. Of course, I'm talking about Melon. Melon, yes, of course. Melon, my neighbors. Melon. But I love this brewery. They invited me when they had no countertops. They had they were just set up. They had like a home brew beer available. Just to see something grow from nothing to something is exciting, and to watch it succeed is very impressive. Every time I go there, it's vibrant. The vibe is amazing. Funky beers is something they're pushing towards. The crisp lagers, such as this one. This is a Pilsner, actually. It's fun. Light, you can have a few of them. You can walk away feeling okay. It's a good place to go have a discussion. It's a place that I love. I'm excited to see where they keep going. It's a brewery that I'm watching because I'm excited to see what they're doing, and they're a part of that like trendy lager train with Ile de Galde, which is a brewery that never makes our list, but that's something we should talk about after.
Definitely should.
Yeah.
Milan is super dope. I think I met them through... Both of you guys had connections to them, I believe. I never, unfortunately, actually got to hang out there and have a drink there and do it properly. I had him on the pod. I was speaking to him the other day, funnily enough. I'm going to hopefully get him back next year. But they're just like, they started to, I feel like it's really interesting watching a brewery start and how they, decide to roll out their products and then seeing them grow into these, barrel-aged things. Like they just dropped the barrel-aged version of their original stout, which was from the very first drop, the Panthère one, Panthère de Nuit or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
Which is named after a song, some dude.
Yeah, all of their beers are named after songs or have puns. Yes. I just haven't come up with a good metal pun yet.
You will. I know if anyone's going to do it, you'll do it. You dedicated motherfucker. But they just like, yeah, man, it's a really cute space. I feel like they're just, really dedicated dudes, super cool. They do a great variety of styles from what I've had from them. Consistency, which is coming up once again. And it's a great vibe as well. They did everything. They had a community behind them. I went on launch day too. And I was very impressed to see this massive line down the block. I think, Matty, you were the first customer, period. They've really added something dope to the neighborhood in Rosemont, for those who know, and you can walk up the street afterwards to La Canette and buy everything. But yeah, huge fan. The people, the space, the beers, phenomenal, well-deserved.
Yeah, so I had a chance to go to their anniversary. Was it their anniversary? Yeah, it must have been their anniversary this year. With my friend Rachel from La Chapelle, and I was super impressed. Like I'd been there with you, Matt, a couple of times, and I always liked their stuff, but everything that they released that day was really quite exceptional. So they had, and for you, Craig, I think you'd be particularly into this. Like they had a bunch of saisons that were only lightly tart and really funky and like very like Hill Farmstead saison style, at this point you could almost say old school, but nothing too sour, just almost like crushable, oaky, really funky, but just slightly sour, wild beers, like the Saison Espinay kind of thing. Amazing. Did a really good job with that. And they had I think a bourbon barrel aged coffee imperial stout that was really good. I had a bottle of that as well.
Amazing. I really feel like they're focused on the Crispies a lot. Just the branding is fire. I just like everything about the place, to be honest, and the dudes involved, and even like the social media, the photography is fucking exceptional. I think it's one of their girlfriends who does it, and it's just fire. I'm just really impressed, man. And this is the second year. I think, were they on our top 10 last year? Yeah, man. Beautiful stuff.
Love them. I'm excited to see where they go next. We have one brewery left, but before we do that,
which is the number one brewery of the year, we want to talk about our honorable mentions, Matthew.
Yeah, there's a bunch of breweries that could have been on this list, but not every brewery can be a top 10, especially when we're hashing it between three people. So, Craig, who are your honorable mentions?
So I had three specifically on my side that I think I want to mention. Toltec. They are a fantastic new brewery who opened, I believe, a year or so ago in Boucherville, just outside of Montreal, where the IKEA is. If you live in Montreal, you know the IKEA. Toltec are fantastic. They are definitely along the lines of that Masorum type, Barcana type of vibe, where they're doing, I don't know if they're doing Crispies, but they're doing haze and smoothies and things like that. I feel like their IPAs are just money. Really impressed. Their smoothies are great. I feel like when I first had them, they were a little thin, and the newer ones that I had, I feel like they've really improved it. I just feel like they're like, if they're not on next year's top 10, I'll be surprised. I'll be very surprised. I'm there on my big who to look for in 2023. So huge fan of Toltec. And obviously L'Espace Public, Simo and the crew, we did a couple collabs with them. Every year we have our Be Out of Our Cants, the OG. We actually had my goodbye surprise party at L'Espace, which thanks to Matt and for organizing all of that. It was really, really fucking cool to see you guys there. That was just a fantastic evening, and shouts to Simo for hosting us all and letting us stay after hours for a little bit to just get lit. Huge fan. Yeah, man, proud of them. I just really love Simon. I think he's probably one of my favorite people in beer, period. And I just love everything they're doing. I think they're really opening the gateway to more and more people. I think they have been on the top 10 before. Maybe they'll come back in next year. Who knows? And lastly, my other one was Harikana. I spent a day not long before I left with my friend Jonathan and his wife Ruth, who just gave birth to twins. So congrats to you guys. Beautiful. And we went to Caracana, got a whole bunch of beers, sat in the park, drank like a 4-pack in the park. I'm like, this is amazing. Then we went there and just ate food and drank more. And I was so fucking impressed with everything I had from Harikana, man. Like, their Crispies are just A1. And this comes into the convo you mentioned before, Matt, about Hildegard. But yeah, like Harikana really impressed me, to be honest, overall. So, yeah, man, I feel like those three were my honorable mentions.
Absolutely. I mirror all three of those. And if anyone knows me, and the whole staff at Harikana knows me and my family and my children, my kids have crawled across that floor. I did my very first promo video for VOX&HOPS at Harikana. I can't love them enough. Their beers are amazing. It's right next to Bar La Ritz, so whenever there's a show there, I drag artists over to do. I've done two interviews at Harry Canna out of 400, so that's not so bad. But for myself, I have a few. Number one, the first one, my brewery to watch is Jackal Hop. Jackal Hop is a very young, exciting brewery, falls into the same aspect as Toltec, ran by amazing, young, very intelligent individuals. One of them is a massive metalhead, and we've been to a bunch of shows together this year. They make great beers. They make every beer, which is like scary if you think about a brewery that's just going to say, we're going to make it all. But the fact is that they make it all really well. The branding is getting better, and I think that that's a big part of the reason why it hasn't made a big of an impact here. The artwork is getting stronger, and I think it's stupid that artwork has such a big impact on the identity of a brewery, but I think that brewers have to pay attention to that. I think it's important. It's stupid. It's stupid, but it's important. It's a part of the package. I feel like it's getting in the right direction. I feel like all their bottles they're releasing, the branding works. The cans are a bit too cartoonish, a bit too childish, and I feel like if they mature it up a bit and make it a bit more refined, it's going to match the beer inside the can. Their haze is good. My vertical project, the coffee stout with 4 breweries, Jackal Hop brewed 2 of those, the Echo Session Ale and the Jackal Hop version. Just awesome. A brewery that I love, more of a brew pub in Hochelaga. How can I not mention Mutoid, the metal brewery? It is the most metal brewery in Montreal. First time I went to Missouri, my metal brothers open a brewery, and I walk in there and it's not fucking metal. I was like, what the fuck? Disappointed, but I understand what they've done. Mutoid was the opposite. The first time I walked in there, I was like, I am home. And every time I'm there, I feel amazing. They made light, crushable beers. I was in there drinking 3% Grazzas the other day. Just fucking awesome. The ambiance is amazing. If you like metal, go to Mutoid. Enjoy light, crushable beers. And then another brewery, one of my favorite collabs that I did this year was for Brutal Montreal. That was with L'Apothicaire. They made a Svetli Vysepny, a light Czech lager. It was fucking amazing. If you like classic style beers, L'Apothicaire is the brewery that should be on your radar. They fall in line with a little bit with what Silo's mentality is. They have like a crique, and I think they're the only people that do this in Quebec. He picks cherries from his cherry trees and makes a crique with it. It's on the brewery. It's fucking awesome. I have one more, and that's Ayawan. The place and the vibe is his old synagogue. The vibe of the place and the location of the place is a 13 on 10. It's fucking amazing. So the beers are like 9, 8 on 10 there. So like everything like dances into like 10 on 10. So they are like with Jackal Hop, Ayawan are going to be on our list next year. I would pay attention to them if they grow, but I don't think they want to. It's like do they want to? You know, do they want to grow and have all the hype and become that fucking brewery that everyone's gonna fucking come to their little perfect town in Val-Morin? What a fucking place! It's on the side of a river. You can people canoe there, and there's like a dock that you can dock your canoe at to go get beers. Gorgeous, just fucking amazing.
I love that.
Well, I'll go quickly through my honorable mentions. One that is almost always on my list every year is Sutton, or Brewery Sutton. So Pat, who used to be at Brasserie Dunham, left and created Brewery Sutton, which is a 100% Brett fermented brewery, meaning every beer that he does is done with Brett. And so if he makes an imperial stout, it's with Brett. If he makes a lager, it's with Brett. And he makes some of my favorite beers in the world just because of the experimentation with it. I've always had an affinity towards liking Brett beers, and it had its time in the sun, and then no one did it anymore. Like Brett obviously exists in wild barrel-aged beers. There's a Brett component, there's a funk to it. But there was a period of time where people were making Brett IPAs or Brett this. And then that kind of went to like sour this and sour that. But I feel like we kind of lost that. But that's what he based his brewery around.
Yeah.
So it almost like carries this like modern but classic appeal a little bit, if that makes sense.
I went there this summer for the first time, like a week before I moved, and I stayed in Sutton for like 5 days. And Sutton is so fucking fire. They have incredible, they're two really, really great breweries, Sutton and L'Abordage on the main street, and Cafe
They both
Yamabico.
do very, very different things too. So you get like
Super different, close to so many things. I just love Sutton so much, and it's like right by the Vermont border, so everyone speaks English. It was just like such an impeccable experience. Any other special mentions, bro?
Last one quickly is Avant Garde, who's one of my favorites in Montreal. I really like their lagers. I really like that they're kind of keeping the hoppy lager alive a little bit. Jesus Crisp might be my favorite beer name of all time. Favorite logo of all time.
Oh, God.
I have the T-shirt. I was there. I was like, oh, no, I'm buying that T-shirt. I'm not leaving this facility without that T-shirt. Anyway, I love
it.
Other stouts. I actually, when I went to Multi Hops to buy a couple of the beers for tonight's thing, I saw that they brought back this bourbon barrel-aged imperial stout at like 15% in a can, and it was really fucking good.
I agree. Avant-Garde have been on our list and could have been on the list. Their blending, their barrel stuff is fucking next level. It's really really good.
I got to like sample. Actually, that was either just at the end of last year or just the beginning of this year. I got to go, and Renault brought me down.
Yeah, he comes with the hammer and the nails and the vice grips.
Yeah, we were pulling nails. They just have this like endless sea of barrels. It's really impressive, and it's such a learning experience for an amateur like us to like pull a nail, sample a barrel, and then the barrel next to it might have the exact same beer, and the barrel might be from the exact same distillery or whatever, or winery or whatever they're doing,
but it tastes different.
And you taste it, and they're drastically different. And there's just a magic to it, and nuances to like, okay, over time you realize that this flavor, if you just leave it a little bit longer, it'll probably be okay, or like this is scrap, toss it. And then so this blending process becomes such an art form.
It's such a commitment to put the liquid that costs money into it, and the barrel costs money, and then it's a gamble.
Yeah.
Every time.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. A lot of respect for the barrel. Anyone who's working with barrels, man, it's pretty crazy.
You gotta have the space. You gotta have the space for the barrels. First off, yeah.
Yeah, and also congrats to them for relaunching Jukebox as well, which is obviously Sean and Renault obviously on that, and I just missed that because I was leaving and it just didn't work out. But I know they rebranded, relaunched the whole thing, and it was just very, very cool. And
absolutely. Number one.
So, number one, it's very difficult to have the best brewery of the year because people like us are personal friends with a lot of these people. And the criteria we're looking at here, obviously things Matt was mentioning before, there's consistency, there's breadth of offerings, the quality of those, different styles that they're doing, something like, just mentioned before, label art, like branding. It might be silly, but it's a business and it's very, very key because if you're looking at a fridge, the vibe of the brewery itself, the people is probably something we shouldn't consider, but we can't help but do because we all know them, because we all make content and we know these people. This brewery is just exquisite in everything that they do. I think they're very deliberate. I think they're fantastic human beings. I don't even know what to say. Like, it's just like they deserve to be the number one. Sankiem Baron once again.
Hell yes. Sankiem Baron. 2 years in a fucking row, man.
Look, some people might say we're biased. I don't think we are at all. I just really, truly believe that their shit is fucking A1. Matt, maybe you've got your collab with Sankyam right there. Tell us your thoughts on Sankyam.
It's a brewery that they're not pretentious, which is weird because
they're so good.
Yeah.
They're so fucking good, but they're not pretentious. Because they could be. You go there and they're so humble, and they're excited that there's some success that's happening for them, and they're questioning if anything is good and why it's good. This is a collab that I did for my 4th anniversary. It came to life when I went to visit Sankyam when they were doing the Transistor Podcast Festival at their place. I went with Kevin from La Canette and Guillaume from La Canette, and we drove down there. We stayed overnight. We stayed for the event, and I was like, I want to make a beer with you guys. I want to do something fucking dark, something with phantasm. You know, like let's do something like Tommy. I wanted to call it Tomb Dust. It was too close to Zombie Dust from Three Floyds. Ossuary came to life after that. Philip Ivanovic. Ossuary is like a bone museum in there's a bunch of them in Czech Republic and across the globe there. It's like a museum that is created out of human skulls and bones. An ossuary, very death metal. Come on,
you're fucked. You're fucked, man.
There's a bunch of them in Europe. They're very. It's like a thing.
I've been to a church in Vienna, I believe, that had St. Joseph's in there. That had the whole crypt.
That would be an ossuary. So this is with Phantasm from New Zealand. So 6.5% IPA. It's not hazy. It's awesome. I'm very stoked about it. But them, like, come on, every beer, every style. No exceptions. The brand is on point. The beer is on point. They distribute. They're not pretentious. They understand cool like aspects of creating events that are also like encouraging the local area where the brewery is from, which is Almer outside of Gatineau, like doing the Peaky Blinders, doing where they like Oktoberfest thing where they close the road, they do the podcast events because they have this like parking lot behind the old house which the brewery's in, and they like cover it in a big tent and there's like shows there. Come on. How could you not like someone that's like creating a community, making killer beer, excellent humans? It's a triple trifecta of amazingness.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I feel like I'm the most biased out of all of us. Obviously, Noah, you've collaborated with him a couple of times. You know, we created Link Up. Every style they do, they nail. What do you guys said to? I think we were talking about it off, like either in the chat or earlier. But like, you know, Sankyam do some of the best haze in Quebec. It's not even really their thing. That's how good they are. Just doesn't matter what they do. So I just feel like everything they do it crazy. They're doing a bunch of barrel aged stuff. I think recently they just dropped their first like farmhouse. Their Crispies are incredible. I feel like they really focus on the Crispies. Citadin became their flagship Czech Pilsner. I don't know. I could ramble on about them all day. Their merch, Jacob doing all the designs, Dimitri doing all the brewing, and even Steven, who's one of our partners, he does all the finances, and he's very on top of his shit for Link Up. So I can only imagine what he does for Sankyam. I'll let you talk, Noah, but yes.
I will start by saying this is the first time I've had this beer, which is just Prairie's Imperial Stout. So no cacao, no coffee, no, just straight Imperial Stout. And this is the best thing I've drank in a long time. It's perfect. I love where certain beers have gone, but I also love some classics, and this is just such a classic. But they have this body to their stouts that's incredible. But I went to Gatineau a few months ago and hung out with Jacob, who's the owner and does all the artwork and branding and all that stuff. And it's just I don't know. It's just like you said, Craig. Like it's just this warming atmosphere where everyone's cool and no one's pretentious. Or maybe Matt was saying that. Sorry. And everyone who works there is chill. And yeah, I have a thing with arrogance, and I have a thing with like overconfidence. It rubs me the wrong way, and I get like no vibes. Like I get like the opposite vibes when I go there. Like, are we doing okay enough for you, Matt? Like, are we performing well enough for you? If not, we can change. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that like, we are here for you. It's humbling to be around these guys. It's great.
Yeah, they're just impeccable, man. And it's very well deserved. And I feel like they're just, they're only coming up on 3 years old in May, same as Third Moon. They opened the same day, and it's they're pandemic babies, and to be this good in this short a time frame, this fast, with this many restrictions on their business, speaks volumes about every individual in that business. I mean, obviously Dimitri's heading the brewing program, and he's just in some sort of a magician, this guy.
Yeah, and I remember Jacob not wanting to release a particular beer at a certain point because he just didn't feel it was right. Like they will make the decision to pour something out or not release it based on quality, which is already really impressive. But I think a lot of breweries do that. But where I think they really shine is a testament to them taking risks at a time when sometimes people just want to double down on what's going to make your money or whatever, right? So, exactly. But they don't do that. They still release. I mean, they haven't done styles that are like completely inept, but just a straight imperial stout isn't a big seller. It's a big seller for Noah Forrest, but not many others necessarily. It's either the trendy pastry stuff or other things. As much as I love what Misorum has done, they've like it's part of their image and it's part of who they are, and I want them to do that 110%. But what Misorum does is kind of like latch on to the hyper what's in the now, right? Like haze is still here, lagers are still here, smoothies are kind of still here, big giant stouts, like that's their thing. Whereas in Sankan Battle, I was like, no, we're going to release a classic imperial stout. We're going to do are you drinking as Schwartz beer basically?
It's a Schwartz beer.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's not like a popular style. And there's still like idea being that they're still making those risks, and it's impressive given when they started their business and all the challenges around that. It's commendable. And all the charity work, obviously, on the side, and community work. They really deserve to be number one.
Hell yes. Sankan Battle. Number one, top 10 of Quebec. We smashed through them.
It was difficult to actually trim it down to this 10 plus honorable mentions. Even over and above the honorable mentions, there's so many breweries that deserve to mention that you can only really do so much. We're already 2 hours. We try to keep this 60 to 90 minutes, but here we are. So it's I feel like this is a good sign. If we keep yapping and we keep talking so gushingly about all these places, that's a really, really good sign for Quebec craft beer. I'm very excited for 2023 to see where it all goes. I feel very optimistic too. I really feel like the scene has just been enviable for anywhere in the country and beyond. So, that's 2022 is one of the best years yet.
Hell yes. Noah, concluding thoughts.
2023, I think we're going to see more lagers still. I think that whole spectrum. I'm hoping to kind of see... I feel like beer should be like fashion, and that things can kind of like circle back in. So maybe the Belgian quad or the Belgian double or box or like doppel box. Like let's see the brewers of today tackle those styles. I would love to see something like that.
Couldn't agree more, and I hope for the same, dude. I like that a lot. I would definitely want to see more Crispies. I kind of want to I echo what Matt was saying about the pastries, and I'd like to just see more straight up and down bourbon or just barrel aged imperial stouts, either if it's just with coffee or with coconut. Maybe less adjuncts and maybe a focus more on the refined versions of those stouts, because I drink a lot of them by myself. I don't always split them with Tiff, and if they're a straight up and down stout, a bourbon barrel aged stout, like I can drink them by myself with no problem on the nights that I put aside to do those things. So I'm like, I'd like to see a little bit more of that. You know, I imagine when, Haze isn't going anywhere, I want to see more.
Bellwoods kills that. I know I'm doing it in Ontario, but they do it well.
They do it exceptionally well. One thing I want to we didn't shout out Sankiem for was their West Coast IPA, so I really would like to see more breweries do it at the level. Sankiem have like 10 different ones. How the fuck do you have 10 very, very different West Coast IPAs from pale to double? It's insane. So I'd like to see more of those anyway in 2023. I feel like that's where I think it's time to bring, every brewery should maybe have a flagship West Coast IPA again. And, or even if you bring it back 3 times a year or something like that.
2023, what do I want? I want to drink better. I'm putting a goal for myself on this podcast. I want to drink smarter. And that's better and smarter for myself. The craft beer wizard makes beers disappear, but he wants to make the right beers disappear at the right time, and then that's something that I'm putting in as a goal for myself. I want to see more West Coasts. I want to see more crushable beers, smart barrel aged beers. I want less adjuncts. I want people to be more creative and more loving and more inclusive. That's what I want for 2023.
Yes, sir. Preach, preach, preach.
Yeah. It's just beer, people. It's just beer. Dudes, this was fucking incredible. The top 10 Quebec breweries of 2022. I can't imagine 2 better people than to hang out with to talk about the best breweries in Quebec. Massive love to both of you. Just say cheers. This is just so damn cool. Make some noise for the fucking breweries from 2023.
Hey, woo!
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right today. You know that I love and appreciate that. Man, this was an awesome hang. I sadly did not get to hang out with Noah and Craig as much as I would have loved to this year, and whenever we're together, we just have too much fun. We laugh. We stayed and we hung out for quite a bit after this, and I'm stoked that I did that. What a killer time. What a killer year for craft beer. Massive cheers to Cinquième Baron for pulling top brewery yet again, 2 years in a row. I stand by the decision. They are just unbelievable. Everything, branding, image, consistency, variety, vibe, charity work, community work. How can you not love them? They're just really the best. If you can get your hands on a Cinquième Baron product, do it, people. Pick it up, try it. You will not be disappointed. Massive cheers to all the other breweries on our list, and also massive cheers to all of the breweries in Quebec for being out there, for making killer products. It's hard to choose a top 10 because there are a lot of amazing breweries in this wonderful province. Now, if you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast's mailing list. You can do that on my website, voxandhops.com. That's VOXANDHOPS.com. And when you do that, you shall receive 1 email a month that will contain all of the details of everything that has happened in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. You get to see which episodes I dropped recently. You will get to see which episodes I have coming up. You will get to see which albums the Vox and Hops album review crew have reviewed recently. You will also get to see which albums Jerry Monk, Vox and Hops' Metal Architect, has added to the Brutal Awakenings playlist, and you will also get to hear about any projects I have in the works before I announce them to the public. There is always a lot of things going on in the world of Vox and Hops, and I hate when you miss anything, so please do me a favor and sign up to the mailing list. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts. I hope you have a killer rest of 2022. I will be back with brand new episodes on January 10th, but until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.